Good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon to people who know me on the East Coast instead of this mountain time stuff.
That's true. It's afternoon on the East Coast, isn't it, Bobbie?
Yep, but I get to see the mountains, so I'm happy with it being morning.
Bobbie, you road tripped out here.
I did.
Just got in this morning.
Yes. I woke up somewhere in Kansas where there was a whole bunch of wildlife, taxidermied all around the truck stop.
Okay.
And then I drove here and I found some breakfast, which was pretty yummy.
As long as you wake up and you know where you are, I think you're okay.
Well,
if you wake up and you didn't remember what you did the night before, that's a bit of an issue.
It doesn't happen anymore now that I'm sober. Dang it. It's never a mystery.
How long have you been sober?
2 years and 2 months almost.
Wow.
Not on
That's
purpose.
pretty exciting. Not on purpose?
Not on purpose.
What does that mean exactly?
It means I quit drinking to go on a trip.
Okay.
An alcohol-free trip, like with these people who
Okay.
I love. The guy who inspired me to start my podcast, I was listening to his, and he was having this trip to Asia. And his requirement was you had to be 30 days sober to go on it. That was his ask.
Okay.
So I quit drinking. Tried to do this without all the drama. But I quit drinking for the 30 days. I ended at a Christmas party. Go to Asia. While I'm there.
Okay. We're going to slow this down.
Okay, slow down.
How difficult was that 30 days for you?
It wasn't hard at all.
Why wasn't it hard?
Because I had an end goal. That's how I operate. Like I'm a play by the rules kind of girl.
Okay.
So if I'm told don't do something, I'm really good at staying in the line.
So you didn't feel tempted, or you just had fixated it in your mind in such a way you're just like,
I'm like,
no
well, Paul said,
do it.
So I'm going to do what Paul says.
Okay.
I didn't want to be, and it's, it's funny. It's what keeps me from gambling too. When I'm not in a place like where I want to gamble, it's like, well, I can't be a hypocrite. I can't preach that I want to raise awareness for my gambling addiction and then gamble.
Yep.
So the drinking stayed away because I got back from the trip. I was like, well, that wasn't so bad. Let me see if I could do this. So the first night we're out at the bar that I'm trying to be at the bar sober. I get word that my estranged biological father died. And I have to, I'm the oldest next of kin. So I got to run his memorial.
Wow.
Yeah. And he died of cirrhosis. So I really have no business drinking. So that's what I mean by kind of.
Was that kind of the hit home moment when you got word of that? I mean, was it like the call you were expecting eventually, or did it catch you off guard?
So the way it's worked, I hadn't seen him since 2004. He was involved with my first cousin's mother. So I'd get word, like I knew if he was in jail sometimes or different things. But what was the year this all went down when you got this call? This just happened 2020.
2020. Okay. So
March
16 years you hadn't seen him.
Correct. But I knew he was around, but I checked the internet every once in a while to see if he was still alive or dead. And before I got in recovery, totally digressing, it's not about networking, sorry. But before I got in recovery.
It is actually. We'll get there.
Okay. I was like, I want to go to his funeral so I could spit on his grave because I hate him. That was the way I felt about it. And then I get into all this learning about addiction stuff. And I realized if I'm going to give addicts grace, I need to give him grace. So I didn't get quite to forgiveness before he died, but I moved the needle from hate to neutral, which was a big deal. But I didn't know that at the time he died. I was still really, really confused. I knew I was like emotional, but I didn't know what those emotions were. I podcasted on it. I talked to my sister who was in the same place. The two younger boys were both in hate and rage and in a whole different mentality than us. And then my first cousin was in grief, like because she actually liked him and had good memories of him. So it was a really crazy thing. So my rule became, I'm not going back to drinking unless I have a good reason to drink. So if you're going to just have one, that's not a good reason. And I started working on it in 2019. I couldn't use alcohol as a coping mechanism. And I did twice. And any other time it was not because I was on a roller coaster. So I was aware of it, So right now, as it stands, I'm not telling you I'll quit drinking forever. I'm telling you that when I make my first million, I'll have a glass of champagne. That's my promise to myself right now. And who knows, when I get to my first million, I might say maybe the champagne can wait till 10 million. But since he died, my stepfather died from drinking too. So, and that was this year. So there's so much damage that can be done. It's just bad.
Bobbie, talk to us about how you feel differently overall. Do you have, obviously, you're going to improve your health, right? That's a given if you're not drinking, but mentally, psychologically, spiritually, if you want to go wherever you want to go on how you feel different since you stopped.
Well, with quitting gambling first, the biggest key is when you ask me about feelings, I feel now. That's the biggest thing. I'm not numb. I'm not hiding behind a slot machine. So now any stressors or whatever, the feelings are whatever they are in the moment when I'm not doing it. Like I can feel, I can be honest. I can have difficult conversations. I don't have to hide behind stuff. I still get a little scared, like that whole dating scene sober, like that makes me nervous.
Understandable.
But I'm pretty awesome, so I shouldn't need to hide behind alcohol.
Works.
So that's, I guess, how I feel. And the more I learn about my spirituality and my journey, the less important it is. Like I go to bars all the time. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
So
you don't feel the pressure.
No, I will tell you the most interesting test. So Bob died in March. It was COVID. The world shut down the day after we had his memorial. And then I was going to Kansas City that September. And I was also seeing a guy that I was stopping to see him on my trip, and we always partied together. So I was nervous about hanging out in Kansas City at the bar I always hung out, and I was worried about hanging out with him. And we're standing there in Memphis. We're standing outside the tribute, the Martin Luther King tribute. And I text my counselor and I'm like, I think I'm going to have 4 to 5, what does she call it? Fermented grapes. That's what she calls it.
Okay.
I said, I think I'm going to have some fermented juice.
Fermented juice.
And then we walk into the bar and I was like, no, I don't really want fermented juice. So once I made it past him, I was like, okay, cool. And he was fabulous. Like he wouldn't have drank if I didn't want him to. He was totally supportive. I was actually very proud of him for not drinking. And then I get to Kansas City and I hung out in the bar for 4 days. Like that's where my social circle is there. It didn't bother me at all. Like, okay. Now I go back and the bartenders make me water instead of Long Island iced teas. They know the drill.
Let's talk about mindset a little bit, guys. We're going to get to networking, I promise. I don't know when, but this is the thing. Bobbie and I decided early on that when we got together like this, that we wanted to be spontaneous. We wanted to be in the moment, talk about, whatever topic came up, what our heart led us into. Let's talk about mindset a little bit around addiction. Bobbie was a former alcoholic. I was a meth addict, nearly lost my life to meth at age 17. So I have a bit of a paradox around this, okay? I grew up in a faith-based home, right? Preacher's kid. Obviously, part of my hardcore rebellion was a result of that. But I also established my own faith, which has progressed over the years, right? Because I'm a guy of research and study and history. Don't just tell me something, expect me to believe it. Okay, I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to inquire. But one of the things I looked at, so I had a radical coming out, if you will, okay? It was a near-death experience. Something happened in that hospital emergency room that I can only label as divine, supernatural, whatever you want to call it, right? That was my experience. It led me to believe that there's someone out there greater than myself. Okay, bottom line, we won't go into that. Today.
Stay tuned.
But I also never went back and touched meth again, and I never had the desire to do so. So I look at different programs, Bobbie, like Alcoholics Anonymous, and something I learned early on, I think part of it was my faith-based upbringing, but it was the power of confession, that life and death are in the power of the tongue. So it was something that I started doing even in my early 20s to confess who you want to become, who you are ultimately. Now, I know in AA, part of that confession, if you will, and you know, help bring your clarity because I don't know all the details, but is that you're actively confessing, I am an alcoholic. Well, for me, that never worked. Okay, and again, we're not going to step on anybody's toes here. This is not a diss against any program or anything. I'm just telling you my personal experience. But it was the way that I associated myself, that I was free, that I was liberated. I have never gone back again and called myself a meth. So I want to ask you about your thoughts and mindset around that confession, how we, because again, right, we empower our lives with what we speak. We frame our world and our environment. There's just so much power in that. I don't think people realize. So I wanted to get your thoughts and I know.
That's a loaded question.
Right.
I love it. It's a great question, though. Okay, so if you ask me this, at different stages would be different things. So when I was a kid, because we had the addiction, I hated the 12-step programs. I resented them because I was in Alateen and, you know, like I'd go to AA picnics, the pig roast and all that. But I resented it because I was like, well, I didn't do anything to be here. So I started off very young with this feeling about it.
Okay.
Then in my early 20s, I was in a gambling study, and part of the requirements were I had to go to a GA meeting. And I was there, again, I was following the rules. The study said I had to go. And one of my memories, and this, everything happens for a reason, right?
It does.
Part of this memory, I hope it helps so many young people. So I'm there in my early 20s, and there's a lady there in her 40s. And she's talking about she gambled away her whole 401k and all these things. And little Miss Know-It-All, 20-some years old, I was trying out for Wheel of Fortune at the time, too, and they were telling me I couldn't do it. And I was like, that'll never happen to me. Fast forward to my 40s, and I go to 12-step out of fear and, you know, like it was my first time trying to get clean.
Yep.
And I didn't resent it anymore. I needed it. I knew it was a tool I needed. And it kept me clean for over 2 years. I'm still connected to a lot of the GA community. But it wasn't until this last 5 years, and it not being just about me, now me being educated, like that research, right? Like that's why I love Paul so much. He has Alcoholics Anonymous meetings in his group, but he also has single and sober, business professionals, you know, like he breaks it down, and it doesn't have to have that negative connotation that you're talking about. So through all the journey, what I've learned is if I sit in a room and I say, I'm a gambling addict, I'm a gambling addict, I'm a gambling addict, what are the chances, now knowing what I know and believe about the universe, that if I say it, use the tongue, like you said, what are the chances I'm going to go back? Because I'm already brainwashing myself on all levels that I'm a gambling addict. I mean, and then I'm
so glad.
I know, because this is my jam. So then I work with the state of New York. I went through their center through recovery, and you know, they used me as a resource. And I was just talking about this not too long ago. We can advocate for it, and we can see that different people don't connect to 12-step, or maybe they don't connect to the center, or maybe they don't connect to their faith-based recovery programs. So the journey is teaching me more about it's different for different people. And if I didn't have the spirituality piece and the believe in what I believe now, I wouldn't believe that I was programming my like. Have you heard the term dry drunk? I imagine you have. Dry drunk, yeah. So to me, there's a really big difference between recovery and abstinence. And you can be abstinent, you can go to a meeting, but it still doesn't mean you're recovery because you haven't connected the dots in that way. Not that my way is the right way. That's actually the exact opposite point of what I believe in.
And I was just going to say, you could also view it as you're trying to refrain versus being totally free of the desire. Big difference there, right?
Yeah, that's why I said I may
just
drink
like
again.
You go there and you're just like totally, you can almost can't bear it, right? I got to have it, but I refrain versus I'm free. The temptation is not there. The struggle's not there like it once was.
Yeah, we were having that conversation about it being antiquated almost. It worked 80 years ago and 60 years ago for GA for these men, and it was pretty much exclusively to men at the time. And the language worked for back then. We didn't understand enough about the science, religion, you know, how our brains work.
Right there. Yeah.
We didn't have the technology. We didn't have addiction starting as young, right? Like these kids have access to sports betting and video games and buying their loot boxes and all these things.
Listen up, parents.
Yeah, like it's not evolving quick enough. That used to work, but now we know that does damage. You know, to say I'm an addict over and over again, I'm an addict. Yeah, we need to remind ourselves. But we also, it's funny, I'm reading The Obstacle is the Way, like literally right now. I don't know if you read that book.
I have not.
It's one of those good ones where man talks about all these different events in history and how these fabulous leaders didn't look at it as like, oh, boo-hoo, I lost the war. They got really strategic. They recognized the obstacle and then they worked around it. Like, I didn't know Rockefeller, he was like poor. He was making 50 cents a day and all the bad recession stuff happens, but he stood back and he's like, oh, let me learn from this. And he strategized based on his learnings. So as long as we remember, and that's just so that we don't get complacent. Like, and again, this is what I believe in.
Apathetic, indifferent, lukewarm.
Yeah, because so I can walk into a bar today and I've had to walk into a casino a couple times. Which is, I won't do that. Like, I won't hang out in a casino.
Is that more of a struggle for you than the bars environment still?
It's part of the rules, but the bar is a chemical you're putting in your body. The cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching is generating a chemical that's already in my body.
That's great. Chemical brain stimuli.
Yeah, like when we were on the Asia trip, we crossed the border and gambling was illegal in Cambodia, which I thought was fabulous because they recognized that theft went up, suicide went up, all the things that went up with gambling addiction. So it was illegal. So we crossed and we were like in Vietnam or like we're at this border and we went to go use the restroom. The tour guy said, go there. And we walked into the casino.
Okay, so let's cycle back in here for those of you that either joined late or watching the replay. So you had a 30-day mandate. You had to be sober before you could qualify to go on this Asia trip. Okay, so now you're talking about after that period, you go on this Asia trip. What was the purpose of the trip?
Recovery, enjoy life. That it doesn't sober travel.
Okay, so you end up. Go ahead and go back to your point. You end up in a casino.
Yeah, and luckily, and this is one of the things I advocate for too, and it's not easy in the beginning, and you can't just go out and be like, hey, I was in trouble with gambling, or hey, I was in trouble with alcohol. There comes a point you have to be honest and transparent. So luckily, the people on the trip knew that about me at that point. So they were like, Bobbie, you okay? Like they were looking out for me. And it was like, once I got past the shock, it was easy in and out, whatever. But what I've come to learn and believe is that, and actually I've proved this, when I was not gambling, my friend Tara came out in May. I took her to one of those free lobster buffets at the casino.
Okay, yep.
And by October, I relapsed. And they tell us in the program that just by walking in, like my relapse really started in May. I was planting the seed for October. So I always tell everybody, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I've seen enough proof that I believe some of those things. So.
Wow, that's a great point. What was the biggest highlight of that Asian trip for you then? Was that part of that?
Well,
recognizing when you walked in there, or was there more?
There was so much good in there. And it's funny, I didn't know I was supposed to go on that trip. Well, I knew I was supposed to go on the trip, but I didn't know why back when it happened. And I really feel like in hindsight, it was to prepare me for what happened the last 2 years. Even the trip showed up. This is me and my little universe stuff, right? I had a friend that I had helped with make a business connection. And he calls me up one day out of the blue and he says, and I'd known about the Asia trip, wanted it, but it was like money, right? Like to travel there and then the conference itself and the event itself. Because he says, you know, I really appreciate what you did with me. And I was still seeing a long distance guy. And he says, I want to pay it for an all expenses paid trip for you to go wherever you want. Now, in his mind, he thought I was going to go see the guy and it was going to be that simple. And I said, you know what? I just heard a podcast about giving. I'm going to switch gears a little too, because this is a really cool point. Brooke Castile is a life coach. And I just listened to her say, giving isn't like, by not accepting someone's gift, we're almost like insulting them and we're robbing them of the joy of giving.
Yeah.
And that's the very short version of it. So I said to him, I said, Uncle Hank, I just listened to this podcast. I said, let me think about this. So I got back to him and I proposed, he paid for the flight, I paid for the trip or whatever. We split it. Yep. But like, to me, that was the universe very clearly telling me, Bobbie, you wanted to be on this trip. So, but you know what? I was an atheist before my trip. Like, totally against all this stuff. Totally against it all. And you know what? I think that has a purpose too for all the people who were like me, like how I used to be. Yeah. So I can say to them, yeah, I was there too. It's our own journey, but holy cow, the things I believe in now. I still am not a fan of the G word. I choose to use universe. It's just more comfortable for me, but I know it's something bigger, and I think that's the word you used. Yeah. So I'm sorry, Kel, but totally went on a tangent.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Because it reminded me about that interim, you know, when I first came off meth as well, right? And, dude, I was a total zombie, like, for months. I remember thinking, because let me back up a little bit. When I came out of emergency, I slept for almost 2 days straight. And I remember during that time dreaming of going through everyday cycle of life. So it was that intense when I came out of it. It was just like, you talk about not being able to distinguish dream world from reality. Like, we hear that, but I lived that. It was weird. And I remember there were days I went, am I ever going to be normal again? Is this fog ever going to lift? And so part of my journey, right, in that healing process was obviously, I want to recover physically, right? I want to heal my body. I want to heal my mind. So at 19 years old, I started fasting, like not eating. And I'm like talking hardcore, not like skip a meal. Like, my first real fast was like 3 days straight.
Wow. And that was before it was cool.
Yeah, that's before it was like all about fasting and part of the, you know, fitness and health and exercise industry or whatever. Yeah, way before it was cool. We're talking like 24 years ago.
So what did that do for your body?
So yeah, it was extraordinary. Sadly, I went in very naive. So the first couple of fasts I broke. I didn't break the right way. My first full 3 days, I went to Steak and Shake that night with college and career group I was working with. Ordered me a big chili mac spaghetti and a milkshake. You know, when you reintroduce food into your body after that long, it's euphoric momentarily, and then I'm running for the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
But I remember when I did one of my first longer fasts, like a week. So 7 days without food, if you've never done it, it's pretty impressive,
yeah,
right? And something happened. Now, with meth, it stays in your system for a long time. What I didn't know at the time is it actually deposits within the fatty tissue of your body and skin. And so when you start extended fasting, you are detoxing at a very deep level, going down to a cellular core of your blood and those fatty tissues. So one of those, maybe it's a second or third longer fast, I think. So my early 20s, right? And all of a sudden, I tasted the drip that I taste when I was smoking lines and that starts coming down my throat.
Oh my God.
And I get this temporary high. And what had happened is I had reached one of those fatty tissue deposits and it had unlocked that meth. And I just remember it was a combination of like, oh my God, this terror and panic. And then relief, because it didn't last. It wasn't like I was, high for hours after that. But you talk about a shock to the system, just an awareness. So it was twofold, right? It was this all these memories flooding back in, right? Because we talked about just the sounds of what a casino would do, reinitiating things in your brain psychology. Well, the taste, can you imagine? It was and the smell, it's all simultaneous, right? Which did what? Unlocked all these memories. And all this different stuff happened. Thankfully, it didn't reinitiate any desire and craving again, but I just went, it was a reminder of how far I've come. And a recognition of the power of fasting and health, which is something I continue to do to this day, to detox. So I'm just so glad you shared that, because just those initial days and weeks and months when we break an addiction, right? There's just so much we don't realize that we go through, and even the years that follow, right, in that healing process. But as Bobbie and I can both tell you, addiction can be broken. I think half the battle is willpower. I think there's a time where you desperately need help and intervention, right, and support to lean on. But I think a big part of that battle has to happen individually for you. Talk to us a little bit about that battle and what aspects that you had to fight alone as Bobbie versus when you needed support to lean on. I think a big part of that. Another big loaded question, guys. We didn't know we were going to go here today. It's intense, man. So if you've got addicted family members and friends, you're going to want to share this with them. Go ahead.
I'm getting emotional. It's not about your question.
No, it's okay.
It's about,
whatever comes up. Let it come up.
So here I am. I'm on my way to Denver. When I come to Denver, I usually stop and I see a girlfriend from Connecticut. And so I see her once or twice a year when they come out here. Well, I got to see her the day after Christmas this year. She came back to Connecticut. Because her brother, who was an alcoholic, died on Christmas Day. So that was this year. And I'm not going to see her on my way up to my aunt and uncle's this trip because she's in Connecticut marrying her 25-year-old niece whose parents both had OD'd. So there's one sibling left. So as you're talking about family members, and then when you were talking about all that stuff staying in your body, as we went through all that stuff with my mom last year, it was part of why she was under and lost for so long. It was like 2 weeks it took for the pills and the stuff to come out of her body. And the doctors were basically telling me to let her go based on all that stuff being stuck in there because they didn't know how to solve it. They didn't know what her life was. So when you talk about that moment, so for gamblers, it's kind of easy because it's usually that moment when we're out of money and out of options. Or if you're someone who's stealing money to fund the addiction, you get caught. The problem with alcohol and drugs is you may miss that moment because it's substances in your body. And you never know if you're coming out of it. If you're someone who's stealing, you're here for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, you're totally here for a reason. I know how you impact my life, Caleb. The reason we said this was going to be about networking is I told him, I said, well, we should really tell everybody we've only met twice. Like, this is only the second time I've ever met Caleb in person. Totally. But there's this common thread, and we can be friends about this or whatever. So I'm grateful to you. So I guess if you're someone out there that does have a family member that's struggling, we can't fix it. I mean, part of why I ended up a gambling addict was because I didn't want to be an alcoholic. Like, I truly believe that. That I ran away because there was a series of events very young. The uncle that committed suicide on heroin. The following year, the guy moved in his apartment that we know and loved OD'd on Thanksgiving. Like, there was just all these series of substance abuse. But gambling's so normalized But I was buying lottery tickets at 15 and sneaking at casino at 18. Like I knew how to get in. We weren't supposed to be in until 21. Right. So that's part of why the mission about awareness and like having conversations like this is so important, because we don't think about these things on the surface. Someone who's not escaping through these methods isn't necessarily knowing. They know that their brother, their mother, their father, whoever is acting funny, or that something's different. Like my maid of honor at her wedding got divorced. We still don't know what was going on, if it was drugs or gambling. He was stealing money, his behavior changed. We don't know what it was to this day. But if you're seeing those behaviors, start doing the research, start asking questions, but don't know that you're not going to be in control. It's up to the person. But there are resources out there to help people help their people. So I just kind of
That's so good, Bobbie, because I recall at times, and if you ask my parents this to this day, they would affirm and confirm this, that these are praying people, right? People of faith, that they thought I was a total lost cause. That I was so far gone. I know I was so far gone, and I remember driving to Utah, to Salt Lake area, to buy an 8-ball, and being in that car, and fear and the paranoia. This is when I was sober. I mean, fear and paranoia when you're on meth are extreme. But I remember praying, Bobbie, because I never lost my faith throughout those years. I remember praying and saying, God, please protect me. I know what I'm doing is wrong. My life is out of alignment. It's whack, right? Just watch over me. And I don't know. It could almost sound selfish. It could almost sound like, hypocritical, but I had faith. And I know that was part of the reason I survived. I didn't get busted when friends around me got busted. I didn't freaking die when friends around me died. But when you realize you've been given a second chance and you shouldn't by all rights be here, it changes everything about your legacy and perspective. We're going to get into all this legacy stuff here soon, but go ahead. You got something to share.
Well, you hit it on the head. We talked about Grant last time, but he says, it's our duty, it's our obligation. And the reason we're going to talk and share whatever shows up on whatever day is because we know that we have a responsibility to you. We have a responsibility to ourselves. We have a responsibility to anybody that needs to hear whatever shows up that day. Like how we listen to our, podcasts and books, and we get the information that we need to keep us strong and going as we try to serve the masses. That's what hopefully we're doing a good job doing.
Oh man, this is so much fun, Bobbie. Here we go from getting very personal and in-depth about our lives and our histories with addiction to going into a place where we're going to teach you how you can build your own legacy, how you can protect your family, get out of probate, and get your assets in order, and then grow them for retirement. So, don't you want to be in a place where you can do the things that you want to do in life freely, where you can come and go as you please, where you can leave a big inheritance for your kids and your grandkids so that they can build something? I don't know about you, Bobbie, but that's what I live for.
Well, that's how we met, was getting to share him on my show and talk about that. What Caleb does is changing people's lives, like the next generations of lives, people's quality of lives, like especially with things like what just happened with Taylor. And life's too short, people. Like, it's just too freaking short.
It is.
The reason I'm out here is because I love driving.
You see these white hair guys? Life is short, okay? It goes fast.
Yeah, it does. But it's important to make time. This is what I was thinking about last night. Was I met you twice. Now, many of us met thousands of people during COVID while we were online learning.
Yep.
But who's working at the relationships? Were they just something to do during COVID, or are you embracing those friendships? That was kind of the thought. Was like, I'm so proud of myself. Like I was telling you, I saw a guy this weekend that I met 3 times, and I learned, you know, I met him online, and I've probably met 20 people from all over the country and world actually now. So maybe the number's higher, but I put the effort into that because these are people who are changing my lives, impacting my lives, and teaching me things. And it's about the relationships and the experience. It's about, like, Caleb couldn't find me when he got here because I was outside looking at the mountains. Like, I never get sick of looking at the mountains. It's not what it looks like in Connecticut. I mean, we got our little mountains in New York and stuff, but it's just gorgeous here. And the sunsets and the sunrises, and no matter where I am in the country, I love them, or the world. So it's those things. And if you're not taking care of your health, your body, your mindset, your finances, you don't get all those opportunities. Now, I'm not saying you need money to have experiences. Those sunsets are free every morning. The sun rises backwards. He's got me all flustered now. But what you do to help people is really important. So I can't wait until we get to dig into that a little more.
We'll dig deep. But back to the whole networking thing, right, guys? I mean, I just want to piggyback on what you were saying. Like, when you make a connection with someone that originally was virtually, as we did with many people, and some of those went on to be business associates and business partners, and some of them who I consider dear friends to this day, and I still haven't met them in person. So what an opportunity. But when you see that you have synergy with someone, when you feel that there's a kindred spirit going on, and we talked about this on our first slide, right? Finding your tribe. It's not always easy. And so to pursue that relationship, right? It was easy. And there was people that I connected with Bobbie online. We talked. It's like, we should do something together. We should build something together. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, call it. And then, where are they? Don't hear from them again, right? Okay. So when you recognize an opportunity. That was a nice way of not
telling on me for nagging you. Good. I like that you like that I called you.
That's right. And I told you that the other day. I said, I appreciate you pursuing me, because we talked about doing this for a while. And life gets hectic, right? Well, I got a teenager. I got a toddler. I got a baby boy. And, you know,
that's a year now. Yeah, like, I remember when we were waiting for it to be born.
Holy cow. Running all over the place. So life is going to get in the way. But as we've all heard, excuses are like, I wanted to do a voice impersonation right now. Isn't that terrible?
Like,
tiny tippy for my bunghole. Are you threatening me? We've got to have a little fun here, guys. But yeah, I mean, excuses aren't going to get you anywhere. And, you know, there's many a day that I wake up tired, right? Kiddos are up early. I'm up early with them. My wife can relate to this. And we got her, this is so great, the mixed bike, the mixed exercise bike by Bobbie, which is Tony Horton from Beachbike.
I feel like you're talking to foreign
language. Yeah, anyway, it's an exercise bike, right? It's got the screen. It's got
like
all
a
the customized.
Peloton.
Yeah, it's got all the customized workouts on it, right? And we just like, we can put that thing in our bedroom, because we're like, we're not going to make any excuses. And there's still days, right? That thing is sitting there looking at us, and it doesn't happen. But now I got to the point, it's great, right? I said, no matter what, even if I just hop on that thing, do a 15-minute deal, right? No more excuses. So we can't make up excuses in our lives, right? Whether it's our health, our well-being, our mental state of mind, our family, like, relationships are work. Okay? I know you're not there yet. We're gonna find somebody amazing one of these days, Bobbie. I'm so excited.
I was there once.
Bobbie's gonna get get a little fan club going here. Okay, we don't go, but you know, my wife and I have been together 11 years, and marriage doesn't get easier, but you get stronger, because there's just days like, you gotta realize, people, like, that whole in love phase, right? That chemicals and endorphins, you know, that doesn't stay around 24/7 the first couple of years. That honeymoon phase, okay?
Are you guys your first husband and first wife?
I was married before. That's where my teenager
Okay, because I feel like the second marriage is like the first one's just kind of a tryout because everybody wants to do it when they're young. Like I have this 21-year-old friend that's just like, I need a girlfriend, I want to make kids. And I'm like, no, slow down. Slow down. I said, you're going to end up getting married twice anyway because it usually takes that second one to figure it out, to figure out the work, to have enough life experience, to be really clear on what you want in a person. Because that's just it. It's not that first marriages are even bad or that they weren't in love. It's just that you evolve and change so much. I believe, like, I didn't get married till I was 30 and I still outgrew my husband at 40. You know, it wasn't his fault.
And that's, you know, that's a great point because, I mean, to be able to continually grow together is not an easy task as well. And both of us can tell you we've transformed a ton from the time that we met. But for the most part, we continue to grow together. Does it happen all the time? No, because you got to go through your individual stuff. You got to go through your stuff together. And God, the shizzle that we've been through over the past decade could have easily broke anybody. And it's a testament to, number one, our commitment to each other, commitment to the relationship, our commitment to grow together, our commitment to forgive each other. Man, now it's getting rough here. This gets me choked up. It hurts me to the core to think that I've ever hurt my wife. Because intentionally, you never set out to do that, right? You never want to hurt the people that we love. But it's also the people closest to us who have the capacity to hurt us the most. And so, thank God I married a mutually forgiving person who loves me for who I am, knows all of my character flaws, right? Because you guys don't have any of those. It's just me. I'm loaded with them.
You took them for all of us?
But at the core, right? That's who she saw at the core, is a man with a heart who cares about people, cares about humanity, loves. I love being a daddy. I feel so blessed to be a father. I love my kids. I love spending time with them. I love that I have the ability to spend quality time with them. Work from home a lot of the time, right? That's a huge blessing. But any type of relationship, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the time. Entrepreneurship, like that doesn't take any work, right, Bobbie? You just sit around and money flows to you.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Guys, you've got to have a different kind of DNA. You've got to have a level of resilience and commitment that your neck goes in my phone. So, you know, it is. You just have to persevere. If you want anything good out of life, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. And you got to be willing to keep going. No matter how tired you feel, go ahead.
Well, I love that you said it from the entrepreneur frame, but since we're on LinkedIn, I want to throw it out here that this stuff applies to employees too, right? And not from the sense of just making the company you work for make a lot of money, but about your own, who you are, who you want to be, how you grow, right? Like you can be a fabulous employee for you. It doesn't have to be for them. Like you, if you're not, this gets me worked up, but like if you're not liking what you're doing, don't do it. Like whether it's the relationship or the job or whatever. Like again, another whole topic I can get on. So I think what you're saying is really important. It all comes down to what do you want, what your values are. And I think if there's any one message, because you know, you're joking about entrepreneuring being easy. It's not easy, guys. It's really not. And yeah, it's just not. It became
such a cliche term though, right? Like, I'm an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship, hashtag entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you opportunities like this to sit in a Panera, you know, with a new friend, but it's a lot of work. God, to be able to spend time with your kids, to be able to connect, to be able to travel, like all of those things are worth it. And quite honestly, I feel like if you're not doing the things that light you up, you shouldn't be doing them. It's that simple.
I'm going to agree 100%, Bobbie. I just, you know, and are we saying you need to walk away from your job today, like with no other source of income? No, we totally get it. We get it. But do everything in your power to start making the shift toward what you do love. Find the things that you're good at. Find the things that you enjoy. Gravitate toward those and start figuring out ways to monetize them. Guys, I mean, in this digital technological age today, like, you can just make money on a smartphone.
Yep.
Like, if you're not making money on a smartphone, right? Selling on OfferUp, selling whatever on, Facebook Marketplace, like, just learn to get comfortable with selling on the side. Use technology and create an additional revenue stream. Start looking for passive income streams. I've got a little box in my house. It's about this big. It's this shiny little silver box with this long antenna in it. But inside of it, all these little computer microchips and everything. And every day, it's mining a cryptocurrency called helium. HNT. You can look it up on any digital platform. Every day, that little box is generating revenue, passive income, mining. And it uses pennies in power every month because of the sophisticated technology. So I say all that to say, whether you're into cryptocurrency or digital currency or not, you can create passive income streams. Literally, you can plug this box in your wall and it does the work for you. So, I just want to encourage you. There's opportunity galore out there. There's ways. Sometimes you got to get creative. Sometimes you got to talk to people. Have these ideas. And I can see Bobbie behind her eyeballs and she got stuff ticking in her brain.
Well, I can't wait to dig into that. I have a feeling it's a very big topic. I want to throw something. I'm gonna bring it full.
Yeah, bring it full circle.
Back to spirituality and that piece of it too. If you do what makes you happy, like, the stars start aligning, and like the income will come with it. Like, you start following your passions and your dreams and whatever, right? The universe wants you to be happy. Caleb's God wants you to be happy. We want you to be happy. Like, it's just that simple. So things will happen, but you got to take some action. That's the whole key. Take action in the relationships and the job and the whatever we're talking about. Take action. Day one of quitting the drink, the drug, it's taking action.
Yep. Like, start right now.
Yeah.
Like, when you stop hearing our voices, like, go do something out of the box, right? Like Bobbie said, take action. You want to break procrastination, get into action. Well, man, this was a good long rant, wasn't it, Bobbie?
Yeah,
I guess we should close it up. Bobbie, where can everyone other than LinkedIn obviously find you, reach out to you, connect with you?
Oh, I'm everywhere, but it's usually Bobbie the Awesome you'll find, like BobbieTheAwesome.com, Bobbie the Awesomest on Instagram. Facebook, I'm boring old Bobbie Malatesta. How about you, Caleb?
Not boring. Hey, well, pretty much social media hashtags @metalpreneur across the board, and then CalebKidCoy.com. So Kid with 2 Ds is my website. You can learn all about legacy, find all kinds of tools, register for presentations and videos. They give you free education galore before you invest in yourself. That's a whole other conversation.
I was going to say, you still got all those cool freebies out there?
They're out there, but
awesome.
The day will come, as Bobbie and I met through an organization where we had invested in ourselves, that you'll have to start putting money into your own personal growth and well-being. But that's about it for today.
Awesome. Thanks, beautiful people, for watching us. And thanks, Caleb, for hanging out with me.
It's great to connect, Bobbie. And you have fun down there with GC and Pueblo. We'll give you some updates after Bobbie gets through with that.
Yes, that'll be amazing.
Bye, guys. Have a great rest of your Monday.